Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be sowing seeds for onions. I'm going to be doing red onions, yellow onions, and white onions, all a bulbing short day style. I'll talk through how I chose my seeds and then we'll sow the seeds, and I'm going to do some follow-up videos about how I care for those seedlings and how I transplant those seedlings and eventually how I harvest those onions. My name's Jen and I'm here in Melbourne, Florida. Melbourne is on the eastern coast of Florida in the middle of the state. And Melbourne is zone 10A for gardening. About 2 years ago, I had my third kid and decided to become a stay-at-home mom, and I've been gardening ever since. What I like to do on the channel is show you what you can grow in raised beds in something like a suburban backyard too. So here in Florida, we plant onions in the fall and then they grow throughout the fall and the winter and the spring, and we harvest in about late spring, so around May. Today is August 13th and I'm going to start seeds for onions, and what I'm going to do is keep them indoors with a grow light and a seed starting mat for heat for about 2, maybe 3 months. So last year when I tried to grow bulbing onions, I totally failed. I started them from seed, but I direct sowed and they barely formed any bulbs. And so this year I did a little bit more research and I'm trying to do it correctly. So here in Florida, we have a couple main YouTube channels for gardening that a lot of people subscribe to and watch. And one of them is Jera's Garden, and I think her videos are so great. So I went and I followed her instructions on her how to grow onions video, and I bought her seeds. So I bought Texas 1015 bulbing onion. This is a yellow variety. I bought red grano bulbing onions. This is a red variety. And I bought early white grano. This is a white variety. And what they all have in common is that they're short day onions. So what I've learned after some mistakes with trying to grow onions is that there's 3 main types. It's short day, intermediate day, and long day onions. Short day is what you need in the southern states because we have the least amount of sunlight, especially during the growing season for onions, because we're growing them in the fall, winter, and spring, whereas in the north, where they would be growing like somewhere in New York or Maine or something like that, they would be growing the long day onions, but they're growing them in spring, summer, and early fall. So the daylight hours are a little different, and then the intermediate, you can guess, is somewhere in the middle. I'll put a picture of a map up that shows kind of the breakdown of short day, intermediate day, and long day onions. Now also last year when I failed with bulbing onions, I didn't fertilize. Like I was listening to Jera's tips about how to fertilize for onions, and I didn't do any of that. So I'm going to do better this year. I'm going to succeed this year, and I hope you guys follow along. So let's get into starting the seeds. I have this seed starting tray right here, and I have these little cups basically that go in it so that I can fill these with soil, fill these with seeds, and water these, and then eventually once the roots are coming out of the bottom, I'll be watering from below and helping to grow those strong root systems. And I also have a humidity dome and a grow light that fits neatly on this, and a heat mat underneath, which I'll show you a little bit later. The soil I'm using is this Pro Mix. I've heard a lot of other gardeners talk about this being a great mix. I watched another video about growing onions from a homesteading channel that actually is not in Florida, but I'll put a link to that video below. She recommended doing a regular mix instead of a seed starting mix for onions, specifically because it will feed the onions for about 2 to 3 months, which is about how long they're going to be in those seed starting cells. So this is what I'm going for. This is a compressed pack of soil. I picked it up from Walmart for like maybe 15 bucks. So I'm going to pour some of the soil in here and then mix it up and get it wet, and then I'll fill my cups with soil, and then we'll get into sowing the seeds. This is my first time using this soil, but you know, I've got high hopes for it. You can see it's, well, it's not totally dry, but it definitely is going to need some moisture. You can see it's pretty dry. I'm going to go ahead and probably fill up this bowl. Let me know if you guys are in Florida and if you have ever failed at growing bulbing onions. It's something that I use in cooking all the time, like constantly, right? Like on Mexican night, we'll choose the white onion because it goes great raw, actually, topped on street tacos. And then the red onion I always use whenever I make some sort of Mediterranean dish, like a Greek salad. And the yellow is just a great all-purpose onion for everything else, right? Especially for flavoring like soups or something at the beginning of the dish. So I really would love to grow my own onions. I hear the flavor is better when you grow them yourselves. And I just think it's one of those things I'm always buying at the grocery store. Let me just replace that with a homegrown version. There are some sticks. I'm probably gonna just omit the sticks because I'm using them, you know, in these little cells. I don't want the sticks to take over. There's not too many of them. I think it's all right. Now, if you want to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of growing onions from seed, the number one disadvantage to growing from seed is the time it takes, right? The alternative is buying onion sets and transplanting them into your garden. But I don't know, I just want to start from seed. It does require babying the seedlings. I'm going to have to check them almost every day to make sure the soil's not drying out and things like that. So if you're not up for all of that attention in the early stages, you can certainly look to buy some onion sets. Now here in Central Florida, the planting calendar, I'll pull up the planting calendar that UF IFAS recommends. And so I'm here in Central Florida, and our target is onions transplanted in the ground in October, maybe even November. So today's August 13th. I'm starting from seed with the intent of growing indoors in seed starting trays for about 2 months. And then in October, August, September, October, 2 months from now, I will be ready to transplant into the garden. I will make a few videos along the way about how I'm maintaining these seedlings, how I'm caring for these seedlings, and how I transplant them, and eventually my successful harvest video, as long as it works out like that. If it doesn't work out, I'm not gonna film it. Just kidding, I will. I'll show my failure too. Now, although I'm putting these seed starting cells inside, obviously I'm making a big mess. So that's why I'm doing it outside, and then I'll bring the completed project indoors. All right, I think this moisture level feels pretty good. So I'm going to fill up all of these. I counted them up. I think I've got 16. So I made 16 labels. I may run out of soil. What I'm gonna do is press the soil in. I've noticed if you don't press the soil in, like you can make it kind of loose at the top where the seed is, but the rest of it needs to be nice and like pressed in so that you don't get air pockets and your roots have like support, especially when it comes time to like look how I'm gonna have to take this out eventually. I'm gonna have to like squeeze and do this. And this just works so much better if everything is really pressed in there. You can imagine if there's a bunch of air pockets in there because you didn't press it in there, it'll just kind of crumble out. All right, so I'm gonna go with about that depth so I can put the seeds right on top and then cover them, and that would be sowing them about 1/4 inch deep. I'm gonna keep going with this, and I'll turn the camera back on when it's time to sow the seeds. We're going to make the labels. I've just got this label maker and some pieces of cut up old milk carton. It seems to work really well for me. So I'm gonna do 16 different containers, so I need 16 labels. I'll start with red grano bulbing onion from Jera's garden. And I'll cut it up, red grano, and wrote it 5 times. Now I'm gonna cut it up and put them on the milk carton. And I'm gonna go through and do this for all of them. This is what it looks like. Here you can see my seed packets and my labels. I'm doing a red onion, a white onion, and a yellow onion, all short day onions. Now we're going to put the labels in, starting with red grano. Okay, now we're going to sow the seeds. These are, again, red grano from Jera's garden. I'm going to split them up in between my 5 cups. I think there's about, I'm going to use all the seeds. I've never ordered from Jera's garden. I'm sure they're great, but you know, just in case germination isn't great or bulbing isn't great, I'm going to just go ahead and put like several in each pot until they're all gone, and I'm going to come back and cover them up with soil. Make sure my hands don't have any seeds on them anymore so I can move on to the next variety. Texas 1015. Again, I'm splitting up between 5. I'm going to use all the seeds. Okay, now early white grano, and I'm splitting it up into 6 just because I had 6 cups. Not really a reason beyond that. Okay, all the bags are empty. Now I'm going to come back in and just sprinkle some more soil on the top. Now I'm just going to pat them down a little. I'm going to gently spray them. Make sure the top is nice and moist. And just in case measure, I'm going to put some soil in the bottom to make sure the bottom of those cups don't dry out. I don't want the soil to dry out anywhere. Seedlings will not survive if they dry out. Now we're inside my house. We're in this corner where I have this little nook that's perfect for seed starting. So I wanted to show you the seed starting tray that's underneath. I'll put a link in the description box to this setup. It's called the Super Sprouter. It's got this tray, it's got the cups that go on the inside, it has a humidity dome, and then it has this grow light, which sits nicely on top in this groove. So what I'm going to do is allow germination to happen over the next 1 to 2 weeks, and once I see some sprouts coming up, that's when I'll turn on the grow light. Before germination, all you got to do is keep the heat mat on and keep the humidity dome on, and make sure that your seedlings stay moist by using a sprayer probably every day. That's it for today's video. Don't forget to comment below with a story about how you have succeeded or failed in the past with growing bulbing onions in Florida. I'd love to know your story. And also, if you hit that subscribe button, you can watch my follow-on videos about maintaining and caring for those seedlings, transplanting those seedlings, and eventually harvesting bulbing onions. See you next time, guys.